we have quite a few projects ahead of us for the season, but the biggest by far is to replace the entire electrical system on the boat. It's vintage to say the least and inoperable, so we're just going to do a full reinstall, including the breaker panel and all the wiring that we can get to. There's some that's kind of embedded in the hull that we probably are going to have to see if it'll work, but we're going to work to see if we can't utilize that part. This is a first generation Catalina C-22, obviously, and the things that we've got going on are that we're gonna need to wire up a solar charging system. We're going to need to get a battery and a battery case, which we don't have right now. We're going to install a new Catalina breaker panel to replace this old one that's kind of not really very, it's not very sophisticated. It has the old style fuses in it that if they blow, you have to replace them, instead of having this type which just trip. If one of these fails, this breaker here actually goes click and flips off, just like what happens in your house. And so we're gonna be redoing all of that, and we are going to also be needing a location for our solar charge controller. We are replacing all of the lighting in the boat with these LED bulbs, which use a lot less power than incandescent, and so this is the project that we have at hand. It's probably going to take, I don't know, a week or more to get it done. I don't know if I've posted it yet, but I'm in the process of trying to do a project management video about boat projects, because as you know, boat projects can just take forever to get done, and one of the biggest reasons why, I mean, I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase on this, but the biggest reason why is because people start into them without having all the parts that they need. And I can totally understand that. A lot of times they don't have the money to buy all the parts, so they're just going to do the pieces of the project that they can. But that's one of the biggest reasons why it takes a long time. So with that in mind, we've bought pretty much everything we need to buy over the winter time while the boat's on the hard, and we're gonna do it here before the season starts, and we'll probably still be making a bunch of runs to the hardware store, but hopefully we won't be doing a ton of things that ordering parts and things like that as we go, because that's what really draws the process out. So we're going to start by taking off the old Catalina breaker panel. I'm just gonna get an idea of what's in there behind there. By the way, we've got a plug in this this looks like a urinal, but in reality it's a drain for the kitchen sink that goes in the galley. We don't use the galley mostly. It's in our basement, but you really don't want screws and other things going down this hole. If you do, they're going to end up in this pipe, which doesn't siphon in really or anything like that. But boy, I think getting any obstacles out of there would require basically disassembling it, pulling the hose off and getting that out. So got that. So here are the various wires that we have going into this, and the trick is going to be to make sure that we label them all, because otherwise we are going to have a real problem on our hands later on. It's going to be important for us because we know that a lot of wiring has been kind of kind of patched together by the previous owner. You can see where there's some electrical tape here, and they've kind of wired some stuff in that they probably didn't need to. I know they wired for a radio and some other things that were not in the original electrical panel. And so what we're going to do here is to try to we're going to need to test each of these wires. We're going to basically be abandoning the original wiring because it's known to just be problematic. When they built these original boats, they used household style 16 gauge wire, and since that time, and one of the features or problems with that kind of wire is it's just stranded copper, and it's very susceptible to corrosion, and it got work hardened very quickly, where any kind of bending of the wire would cause it to get brittle and actually break, and the individual strands would break in various places, and the conductivity of the wire would suffer. These days, modern yacht manufacturers use boat cable, and only boat cable. And boat cable, this is 16 gauge boat cable. Each individual strand of wire is tinned before it's wound inside, and there is much more burly insulation on there, and it's heavier gauge. Even though it says 16 gauge, it's actually heavier than SAE wire size, the Society of Automotive Engineers. So basically it's heavier duty than car wiring. And this is what you want to use on boats. You don't want to just go to the hardware store and buy 15 gauge wire. That's not, it wouldn't be legal for a manufacturer to do it. And the reason why is because these boats use DC power, and one of the things about DC power is that if you run too much current through too small of a wire, it becomes very, very hot. You can see this if you wanted to take a piece of nichrome wire and just hold it between the two ends of a D battery, just a single D battery. That thing will glow red, burn your fingers right away, like all sorts of things. It'll cut through foam, and that's just with a single battery, a single D battery. Imagine if it was like a flashlight battery. If you were to put a car battery behind a DC circuit, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using a 12 volt deep cycle marine battery, which is pretty much a car battery that has the ability to be drawn down to very low levels of charge and then recharged. That's what deep cycling means. It's capable of being discharged and recharged reliably without damaging the battery. But the amperage behind there, the cold cranking amps, is, 200 plus amps. And so you have to really make sure that the wiring is sized properly, or you're gonna create a very hot situation. These little LED bulbs don't draw much power, but we do want to watch and use the right stuff. It's not worth messing around with and doing it wrong. As part of our rewiring project, we pulled these little strips of teak out from the hull to deck joint area, because we're going to tuck a bunch of wiring behind, and rather than try to seal it with the Sikkens Cetal Marine, we decided, on the advice of the guy from Western Marine, to just try putting some teak oil on it. It's fairly protected, so it doesn't get water. So we decided to give that a shot, and look at the difference. It's quite the improvement. We're just using regular, everyday saffron teak oil, siphon teak oil rather, and so that's where it's looking so far. As far as progress is going here, we've got I've made this little battery tray. It's drying. I put some Cetal, some Sikkens Cetal natural teak on there. The little rails around the corner are actually made of cedar. I didn't think it needed to be super hardcore. And then there's a marine plywood base. And then this little panel, this is going to be for small scrap of marine ply is going to be what we put our negative bus for the electrical and the RF receiver for our LED lights. So we got that going on. We've got a full cocktail. Here's the RF receiver. This is going to be our negative bus here from Catalina Direct. This is a spin lock deck clutch that's going to work with our roller furler, deck mounted attachment point for the electrical on the mast. Here's our deck light and steaming light and some fair leads, which I'm not so sure we're going to need. And then over here's a masthead with our new battery. Masthead, I've put this spinnaker crane on from Catalina Direct. We don't have a spinnaker yet, but Wendy wants one badly, so I've gone with that. But this little guy is going to go here. I've tapped and threaded for that, but I kind of need a couple of these screws, 1024 screws, and I only have the our old cabin lights are here. As you can see, they really rusted out inside. These parts are all still available. I could get a double pole switch and this little thing at the hardware store, but it's just not marine grade. So I went and drilled into the cabin top, hoping that there was wire in there. But myself and Wendy, we both dug around in there with that piece of coat hanger, and we're unable to find any wiring. And I'm starting to think it doesn't matter, because what the original Catalina deal was that they only give you a mast light, an anchor light basically. But we want to have a deck light, a steaming light, and a mast light. So I just kind of ordered and paid the extra money to have express shipped a 16/4 wire, which will be basically 4 wires of 16 gauge boat cable in a flat ribbon that we're just going to drill down through and run back behind the curtain area underneath, and take it over to underneath this rail where we can get it back to the battery, and that way we'll have all the wires we want, and it'll be pretty much bomb-proof in terms of the quality of the wire. So we're good with that. I'm going to put some butyl tape in that hole so that in case it rains, which I'm sure it will this afternoon, that we don't get water into the plywood core. Next weekend's Memorial Day weekend, 2016, and we want to make sure that we are ready to go. We ran new boat cable from our stern light, our clear navigation light, all the way back. Inside, I set up a Perco plug here for our solar panel, which is just a duplex plug. This is a 35 watt solar panel. If you buy solar panels and they're being shipped from China, be aware that there's an anti-dumping treaty, a tariff in place that's about supposedly 264% of the price of whatever panel you buy. So if you have to pay that, you're going to get really reamed on that cost. So that's something to be aware of. As far as the actual electrical goes, we got a new battery box. I made a new battery tray, and this strap is to keep the battery box from tipping side to side. It's not mounted down there. It's just held in place with the strap. I don't like the strap here. I can't get it any tighter than this because of the way it's set up. I've tried it a bunch of different ways, and it just is a bad design. So I'm going to get a new strap. They're just a couple of dollars. the I'll show you the interior lighting later once it gets a little darker. But we got these lights from Catalina Direct, and a bunch of LED strip lights that are up underneath here, which I suppose I can get those turned on. So we have a clear light, which looks to be like a cool white color, and then a red for at night, which is nice. And we've got one of those on either side, along with our remote control see if we can't get these guys turned on. There they are. You can kind of see them up underneath there. And they're dimmable, so we can go with different brightnesses. That's cool. And then I put a recharging cable, a USB recharger, for our little JBL speaker system that's Bluetooth compatible. And then the big thing that's going on, one of the two big things that are going on, is we got this 30 amp solar charger. It's a bit more than what we need for the boat, but it's flush, and that's really nice because this is a seating area, and it has its own USB port, and it toggles through the various pieces of information that you need to know about the electrical system. So right now we're at 100% battery power. The solar panel's putting off 0.5 of an amp of power, and we're pretty much good to go. Down below, I got everything rewired down here, and I'm probably gonna do some work to get some of this wiring held back a bit. But basically, we're good on this side, and this is all the new wiring for the new panel, which we bought from Catalina Direct. We spent a little bit of money on this, but there's also a 12-volt cigarette lighter type deal there too as well. We spent a little bit more money on this than we could have done it cheaper, but this had everything that we needed on it, and they're all breakers, no fuses. We've got two big breakers and then a bunch of independent. These are the breakers actually, and these are just on-off switches. So if something trips, it's going to trip here. But nonetheless, very happy with everything, the way it worked out. You can see how bright it is up in the front of the boat with the LEDs lit, and this is going to be wonderful for boat camping. We did have to run some 16 gauge 4-plex of wire through the cabin top, which I wasn't real excited about doing, but it had to be done. The original Catalinas only were wired for a mast light, so no steaming light, no deck light, and we really wanted all of that, so that required 4 wires, and even if we were able to find the one that's buried up in there, it probably would have been bad. I mentioned earlier that we use one run of wire, and that was for these lights. The supply line for these tested out well, so I decided to go keep that.
As you can see, we've got heavy amount of shrink tubing on there. That's shrink tubing that's made by Anchor. It's probably the go-to company when it comes to marine products. And there you can see the grommet that protects the wiring from any type of abrasion or chafe against the mast where it penetrates through. We've also got a kind of a large hood of shrink tubing that goes around the top of the male end of the plug, so that water really doesn't run down inside of it. It's all pretty watertight inside, but still it's nice to get that to sheet off the plug. Inside it's kind of hard to see, but one of the prongs of the male plug is longer and thicker than the rest. In this way, you can't insert the plug the wrong way. But more importantly, those longer, thicker prongs are the negative. So you always have a ground when you plug the plug in. You get a ground first before anything gets powered up, and that's kind of typical of these types of plugs. A little bit you can kind of see peeking out a little bit of butyl tape between the plug assembly and the coach roof. and that's butyl tape, which is being used to waterproof this connection. Butyl tape is a wonderful product. We go into it more in detail in our marine hardware episode coming out there. You can kind of see I'm pointing to it. That's pretty much, we're very happy with the way this whole thing worked out. It's very stout plug and assembly, and it's kind of mostly out of the way. It's not in a place where you tend to trip on it.
Here you can see our cabin lights. That's a bit of a mess because we had a lot of stuff on it for the weekend, but you know, that's pretty good. I gotta say, I'm very happy with it.